The F-35 Lightning II screamed through hostile airspace at 30,000 feet, its stealth profile invisible to enemy radar below. Major Kara Whitman's hands gripped the controls with practiced precision, her eyes scanning the instrument panel in the pre-dawn darkness. This was supposed to be a simple reconnaissance mission: observe, report, return. But in the theater of modern warfare, nothing ever stays simple for long. What happened next would ground her career and change everything. Before we dive into Kara's story, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from tonight. Are you a veteran yourself? Now, let's go back to that fateful morning that started it all. The cockpit of Kara's F-35 hummed with quiet efficiency. Green lights glowed across the instrument panel. Outside, the world below looked like a dark patchwork quilt stitched together with roads and rivers. She'd been flying for 2 hours, following a grid pattern over enemy territory. Viper 1, this is Eagle Base. Report status. The voice crackled through her headset. Eagle Base, Viper 1. All systems green. No visual contact. Grid 7 complete, moving to Grid 8. Kara banked the aircraft left, her movements smooth and practiced. She'd flown this same reconnaissance pattern dozens of times. The radio stayed quiet for 10 minutes. Then she heard it. Mayday, mayday. This is Rescue 7. We are down. Repeat, we are down. Kara's heart jumped. She checked her display. The distress call came from 15 miles southeast, outside her mission zone. Rescue 7, this is Viper 1. I copy your mayday. What's your status? Viper 1, we have 4 souls on board. Helicopter took ground fire during medical evacuation. We're taking heavy fire from the tree line. Need immediate support. Kara's mind raced. The rescue crew was trapped. People were shooting at them. She could reach them in 3 minutes. But her orders were crystal clear. Maintain radio silence except for scheduled check-ins. Stay invisible. Don't engage unless engaged first. Eagle Base, this is Viper 1. Rescue 7 is down and taking fire. Request permission to assist. Static. Then Colonel Morrison's voice, sharp and cold. Negative, Viper 1. Maintain mission parameters. You will not break stealth profile. Rescue operations are not your concern. Sir, they're medical personnel. For Americans under fire. I said negative, Major. Continue your reconnaissance sweep. That's an order. Kara stared at her radar screen. The helicopter showed as a small blip, not moving. Around it, she could see heat signatures. Too many heat signatures. Rescue 7, what's your situation? She asked. Viper 1, we've got at least 20 hostiles in the trees. They're moving closer. We can't hold much longer. Her hands tightened on the controls. 20 years of military service. 20 years of following orders. But she could see those people down there. Real people with families waiting at home. Eagle Base, I'm 5 minutes from their position. I can provide air support and be back on mission in 10 minutes. Absolutely not. Viper 1, you will continue your mission. Do not deviate. Confirm you understand this order. The radio went quiet. Kara looked down at the helicopter again. She imagined the crew huddled behind their aircraft while bullets flew overhead. One of them might be hurt already. They'd flown into danger to save someone else's life. She made her choice. Rescue 7, help is coming. Mark your position with smoke if you can. Viper 1, what are you doing? Colonel Morrison's voice cut through the static. Kara didn't answer. She pushed the throttle forward and dove toward the crash site. Her targeting system came alive, painting the heat signatures in the trees with red diamonds. Enemy fighters. Lots of them. All hostiles around Rescue 7. This is United States Air Force. You are ordered to withdraw immediately or face destruction. Muzzle flashes sparked from the tree line. They were still shooting at the rescue crew. Kara's first missile struck the largest group of fighters. The explosion lit up the forest. Her second missile hit a technical vehicle trying to flank the helicopter. She made 2 more passes, her cannon chattering as she drove the remaining fighters back into the deep woods. Rescue 7, area is clear. Can you fly? Negative, Viper 1. We're shot up pretty bad. But the crew is alive. All 4 souls accounted for. Thank you. Stay put. Help is coming. Kara climbed back to altitude, her heart still pounding. Below, the rescue helicopter sat quietly in a small clearing. Safe for now. Her radio exploded with chatter. Viper 1, you have compromised this entire operation. Enemy forces now know our aircraft are in the area. Return to base immediately. Yes, sir. And Major Whitman? Consider yourself grounded the moment you land. Kara flew home in silence. She'd saved 4 lives. She'd also ended her career. The strange thing was, she felt no regret. Sometimes doing what's right costs more than doing what's easy. But as she approached the runway, she wondered if the price was worth it. The hearing room felt smaller than it was. 3 officers sat behind a metal table. Their ribbons caught the harsh fluorescent light. Kara stood at attention, hands clasped behind her back. She'd been in this position for 20 minutes. Major Whitman, said Colonel Morrison, shuffling through papers. You deliberately disobeyed a direct order. You compromised an ongoing stealth operation. Your actions put other missions at risk. Yes, sir. I understand the charges. General Hayes, the presiding officer, leaned forward. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Kara looked straight ahead. I saved 4 American lives, sir. That wasn't your mission. No, sir. It wasn't. Captain Torres, the rescue crew chief, had testified earlier. His left arm was in a sling from the crash. Before he left, he looked at Kara and mouthed the words, "Thank you." She remembered that now. Major, General Hayes continued, explain your decision-making process. I had eyes on 4 Americans taking heavy fire. I had the capability to help them. I helped them, despite direct orders not to engage. Yes, sir. Colonel Morrison slammed his pen down. This is exactly the problem. You think you can pick and choose which orders to follow. I think I can tell the difference between right and wrong, sir. The room went silent. General Hayes made a note on his pad. Major, your service record shows exemplary performance over 20 years. 3 combat tours. 2 distinguished flying crosses. Why throw that away? Kara thought about her father. Colonel James Whitman had died in a helicopter crash when she was 16. He'd been on a rescue mission too. Someone had probably told him it wasn't his job either. Sir, my father always said the uniform doesn't make you a good soldier. Your choices do. Your father was a good man, General Hayes said quietly. But good intentions don't excuse insubordination. The hearing lasted another hour. Questions about protocol. Questions about chain of command. Questions about the bigger picture that Kara apparently didn't understand. Finally, they dismissed her. She walked to the parking lot and sat in her truck. Her phone buzzed. A text message from Captain Torres. My kids want to thank you. Can they write you a letter? She typed back, of course. The next morning, Kara reported to the intelligence office. Her new assignment. Desk duty while they decided her fate. Lieutenant Parker, fresh from the academy, showed her to a cramped office with no windows. You'll be analyzing enemy movement patterns, Parker said. Reports come in every 4 hours. Flag anything unusual. Kara spent the morning reading intelligence summaries. Enemy forces were moving. A lot of them. Equipment convoys heading toward the border. Troop buildups in 3 sectors. Someone was planning something big. She knocked on Parker's door. Lieutenant, you need to see this. Parker looked at the reports. What am I looking at? Classic pre-assault positioning. They're massing for a major offensive. Probably targeting forward operating base Delta. How can you tell? Kara pointed to the map. The convoy routes all converge here. The troop concentrations form a 3-sided box around the base. And look at the timing. Everything's accelerating over the past 48 hours. Parker frowned. I should pass this up the chain. You should. Today. At lunch, Kara sat alone in the cafeteria. She watched younger pilots talking about their missions. They looked confident. Maybe too confident. War had a way of teaching humility to those who lived long enough to learn. Sergeant Davis sat down across from her. He'd been crew chief on her F-35 for 3 years. Major, the bird's looking lonely in the hangar. I bet she is. Pilots are talking, ma'am. They think what you did was right. Kara picked at her salad. What I did got me grounded, Sergeant. What you did saved 4 people. Sometimes that's more important than staying out of trouble. That afternoon, the intelligence reports got worse. Satellite images showed surface-to-air missile batteries moving into position. Advanced systems. The kind that could shoot down anything in the sky. Kara studied the patterns. She'd seen this before in Syria. The enemy was preparing an aerial denial zone around forward operating base Delta. Once those missiles were active, no aircraft could get in or out. The base would be cut off. She called Parker again. "Lieutenant, this is urgent. They're setting up a no-fly zone around Delta Base." "How do you know?" "Because I've seen it before. Those missile placements aren't random. They're creating overlapping fields of fire. Any aircraft trying to reach that base will get shot down." Parker stared at the reports. "How long do we have?" "Maybe 72 hours. After that, the people at Delta Base are on their own." Kara walked home that evening thinking about the pilots she'd watched in the cafeteria. Young, brave, completely unprepared for what was coming their way. She'd fought through aerial denial zones before. It wasn't like the textbooks. It was chaos and death and split-second decisions that meant the difference between coming home and not coming home. Her phone rang as she reached her apartment. "Lieutenant Parker." "Major, the general wants to see those reports first thing tomorrow. Apparently, some people upstairs are very interested in your analysis." Kara looked out her window toward the flight line. In the distance, she could see aircraft being prepared for evening missions. Soon, those same aircraft might be flying into the most dangerous airspace any of them had ever seen. The first missile hit at 0347 hours. Kara heard the explosion from her apartment 5 miles away. She was already awake, sitting at her kitchen table with intelligence reports spread in front of her. She'd been right about the timing. She'd been wrong about having 72 hours. Her phone rang. Lieutenant Parker's voice was tight with panic. "Major, you need to get to the command center. Now." Kara drove through the dark streets while radio chatter filled her truck. Forward operating base Delta was under attack. Heavy artillery. Airstrikes. The full assault she'd predicted. The command center buzzed with activity. Officers hunched over computer screens. Radio operators barked coordinates into their headsets. General Hayes stood in the center, his face grim. "Major Whitman," he called out. "Your analysis was correct. They hit Delta Base with everything they had." Kara looked at the main display screen. Red dots showed enemy positions. Blue dots showed friendly forces. The blue dots at Delta Base were surrounded. "What's their status, sir?" 230 soldiers trapped. The runway is cratered. Ground evacuation is impossible through that terrain. We need to get them out by air. Captain Rodriguez, the air operations officer, approached with a tablet. "Sir, we've lost 4 aircraft already. 2 F-16s and 2 rescue helicopters. The missile coverage is too thick." Kara studied the tactical display. Surface-to-air missiles formed a deadly umbrella over a 20-mile radius around Delta Base. Advanced systems with overlapping coverage. It was exactly what she'd warned them about. "What about flying under the radar coverage?" asked Lieutenant Parker. Rodriguez shook his head. "Terrain's too rough. Mountain peaks on 3 sides. The only approach corridor is through the valley, and that's where the heaviest missile concentration is." General Hayes turned to Kara. "Major, you predicted this. What would you do?" Kara walked closer to the display. She traced the valley approach with her finger. "The missiles are positioned to catch aircraft flying straight through. But look at these peaks here and here. If you could thread between them at exactly the right altitude and timing, there might be a window." "Might be?" "It would require precise navigation. Perfect timing. And someone would have to know enemy radar patterns well enough to predict their scanning cycles." Colonel Morrison stepped forward. "Are you saying it's possible?" "I'm saying it's possible for someone who's flown against these specific missile systems before. Someone who understands how they think." The room got quiet. Everyone knew what she meant. Kara had 3 combat tours against exactly these kinds of defenses. She'd studied their tactics. She'd survived their attacks. "The problem," Morrison continued, "is that our most experienced pilot is currently grounded for insubordination." Before Kara could respond, Sergeant Davis burst through the door. "Sir, Delta Base is on the radio." They need immediate medical evacuation. They've got wounded who won't survive the night. General Hayes grabbed the radio handset. Delta Base, this is Eagle Base. What's your situation? The voice that came back was strained and tired. Eagle Base, we've got 15 critical casualties. Without immediate evacuation, we're going to lose them. We also have wounded who need blood transfusions within 6 hours or they won't make it. Hayes looked around the room. Options. We could try another helicopter run, Rodriguez suggested. Maybe at dawn when we have better visibility. We've already lost 2 helicopters, Morrison said. We can't keep throwing aircraft at those missiles. Kara studied the radar coverage map. What if we didn't try to avoid the missiles? Everyone turned to look at her. Explain that, Hayes said. The missiles are programmed to engage aircraft flying normal approach patterns. But what if you flew something they weren't programmed to expect? Something fast enough and low enough to confuse their targeting. She moved to the map display and drew lines with her finger. F-35s. For aircraft. Approach from different vectors simultaneously. Use the mountains to mask radar signatures until the last possible moment. The missiles won't have time to track multiple fast-moving targets coming from different directions. Rodriguez shook his head. That's a suicide run. Those pilots would be flying blind through mountain terrain at night. Not blind, Kara said quietly. They'd need someone who knows those mountains. Someone who's flown combat missions in that exact terrain. Colonel Morrison crossed his arms. Even if we had such a pilot available, which we don't, the risk would be enormous. The risk of doing nothing is 15 Americans dying tonight and 200 more trapped until they starve or get overrun. General Hayes stared at the tactical display. The red enemy positions seemed to pulse with threat. The blue friendly markers at Delta Base looked small and vulnerable. Major Whitman, if you were planning this mission, what would you need? 4 F-35s. Pilots willing to follow exact flight paths with no deviation. Perfect weather. And authorization to lead them through that corridor. You're grounded. Yes, sir. I know. Another explosion rumbled in the distance. More artillery hitting Delta Base. On the radio, they could hear the base commander calling for emergency medical support. Hayes walked to the window overlooking the flight line. Aircraft sat ready on the tarmac, but their pilots were hesitant to fly into what everyone knew was a death trap. Major Rodriguez, how many pilots do we have qualified for night mountain flying in hostile territory? Including Major Whitman? 5. Without her, maybe 2 with enough experience to survive those conditions. Hayes turned back to the room. His eyes settled on Kara. She could see him weighing options. Military discipline against mission success. Protocol against lives. Finally, he spoke. Major Whitman, you'll remain grounded pending resolution of your hearing. However, I want you to prepare a detailed tactical analysis of possible rescue scenarios. Kara nodded. Yes, sir. But as she looked at the map, she knew tactical analysis wouldn't save the people at Delta Base. Only someone willing to fly through hell would do that. And despite being grounded, she was still the only pilot who knew the way. The shelling never stopped that night. From the command balcony, Kara watched red flashes bloom on the horizon where Delta Base fought to survive. Each glow meant another burst of shrapnel, another cry over the radio. The smell of diesel and burnt metal drifted across the field even though the fight was 70 miles away. She tightened her fist around the coffee cup until her knuckles turned white. Major Whitman, Lieutenant Parker said behind her, voice low. Casualty update just came in. Delta lost 6 more in the last barrage. Medics say 3 of the wounded kids you saved earlier won't last till dawn if we don't move them. Kara followed him back inside. The operations floor looked like a storm of glowing screens and tense faces. An airman handed Parker a paper slip, then blinked away tears. Kara read it over his shoulder. Supply convoy hit on the North Road. 10 killed, blood units destroyed. Every minute we wait, the math gets worse, she said. Colonel Morrison stood at the center map, arms crossed like a gate. We have no safe corridor, Major. You showed us that yourself. Safe and possible aren't the same. A narrow shot is still a shot. General Hayes approached, lines deeper than yesterday. I've requested more satellite time and long-range artillery support, he said. Command says hold position until daylight. A radio on the table crackled. Eagle Base, this is Delta Medic 1. We are out of morphine. Repeat, out of morphine. Patients screaming. Request aerial drop, any amount. The sergeant handling the set swallowed and answered that they'd try. Kara heard the strain in the medic's voice, a rasp that said he was working in smoke and dust. She pictured the field hospital, cots jammed under sandbags, for bags swaying from bent poles, young soldiers biting blankets to stay quiet. She walked to the back wall where flight suits hung like ghosts. Her own suit still had dried mud from the rescue run. She brushed the sleeve, then turned as Captain Rodriguez joined her. They've tasked drones to hit the missile sites at dawn, he said. Brass hopes that clears a lane. Drones won't survive the first volley. Those batteries carry optical backup. They'll switch to manual the second the radars go dark. Rodriguez nodded, eyes tired. I know. Just passing the plan. An alarm sounded. Lights in the room shifted to red. Incoming rocket attack on Eagle Base. Everyone dropped to the floor as distant booms rolled in. Ceiling panels rattled. A mug fell and shattered. After the last rumble faded, people climbed back to their stations like ants after rain. Hayes wiped dust from his cap. We can't even keep our own roof intact. How are we supposed to save Delta? Kara met his gaze. By trusting someone who has flown through worse. Late that afternoon, the bodies of the 2 helicopter crews lost in the morning were brought home. The honor detail marched past the hangars while a lonely bugle played. Airmen lined the road. No one spoke. Kara stood at attention, helmet tucked under her arm. She saw Lieutenant Mason, one of the youngest F-35 pilots, shoulders shaking as the flag-draped coffins passed. He'd been scheduled to fly escort for them, but was grounded for maintenance. Couldn't stop thinking they must have been terrified, he whispered to her after the ceremony. They were doing their job, she said. And now we have to do ours. That night she spread new maps across her bunk. She marked mountain saddles, radar shadows, storm cells forecast to move in by dawn. Her pen traced a serpentine path so tight it looked impossible. But if flown at 300 knots, 30 feet above the tree line, with timed climbs over 2 ridges, an aircraft could slip past the net before the batteries could pivot. She rehearsed each turn in her head, felt the G-forces in her muscles. At 0200, someone knocked. General Hayes stepped into the dim room, hat in hand. He looked at the scattered maps, then at Kara. For a long moment neither spoke. The distant guns boomed again, softer now but steady as a drumbeat. Major, he said, voice rough, we're out of time. I need volunteers for a night extraction run. I need someone to lead them who can bring them home. Kara closed her map folder. Then you already know what I'm going to say. Hayes nodded. Meet me at the briefing room in 20 minutes. We'll see who else is willing to follow you into the dark. Kara slid the folder under her arm and followed him out. In the corridor, the walls shook again, but this time the sound felt distant. All she heard was the rising hum of engines being readied for flight. The briefing room smelled of coffee and tension. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Kara walked to the front, her reinstated flight suit stiff with fresh creases. 5 pilots sat in metal chairs, their faces a mix of determination and fear. These weren't the Academy hotshots anymore. These were volunteers who knew they might not come home. General Hayes stepped forward. Major Whitman, your suspension is hereby lifted. You are restored to active flight status and granted full command of this mission. Kara nodded once. No ceremony, no speeches. Lives hung in the balance at Delta Base while they talked. Gentlemen, she said, spreading maps across the table, this is the most dangerous mission any of us will ever fly. The enemy has created a surface-to-air missile umbrella over Delta Base. Our job is to punch through it and provide cover for evacuation transports. Lieutenant Mason raised his hand. Major, what are our odds? Honestly? About 50-50. Maybe worse. The room got quiet. Someone's coffee cup clinked against the table. Captain Torres, the pilot who'd replaced Viper 4 after his medical leave, leaned forward. What's the approach? Kara traced a line on the map with her finger. We'll approach from 4 different vectors simultaneously. Low altitude, high speed. The idea is to confuse their targeting systems by giving them too many fast-moving targets to track. Through mountain terrain? Asked Lieutenant Parker. At night? Through mountain terrain at night in radio silence until the last possible moment. Parker swallowed hard. And if someone gets separated? You don't get separated. You follow my exact flight path. No deviations. No heroics. Stay with the formation or you die alone. Sergeant Davis entered with equipment manifests. Major, aircraft are prepped and ready. Full fuel loads, maximum ordnance. Emergency oxygen for extended high-altitude flight. Medical supplies for the evacuation? Loaded on the transports. Blood plasma, morphine, surgical equipment. Everything the field medics requested. Kara looked at each pilot individually. Anyone wants to walk away, now's the time. No shame in it. This mission requires volunteers only. No one moved. All right then. Let's gear up. The hangar felt cavernous in the pre-dawn darkness. 5 F-35 Lightning IIs sat in perfect alignment, their stealth profiles like sleeping sharks. Ground crews made final checks while pilots performed their ritual walkarounds. Kara ran her hand along her aircraft's wing. The metal was cold and smooth. This bird had carried her through 3 combat tours. Tonight it would either carry her home or become her coffin. Major. Lieutenant Mason approached, his helmet tucked under his arm. I wanted to thank you for letting me fly this mission. After what happened to the rescue crews, I need to do something that matters. Just follow my lead and trust your training. That's all any of us can do. The pilots climbed into their cockpits as the first hint of dawn touched the eastern sky. Kara settled into her seat, the familiar embrace of switches and displays surrounding her. She'd missed this. The power thrumming through the airframe. The absolute clarity that came with flight. Viper Squadron, radio check, she called. 5 voices confirmed clear communication. Tower, this is Viper 1 requesting clearance for immediate departure. Viper 1, you are cleared for takeoff. Winds calm, visibility unlimited. Good luck out there. The engines spooled up with a rising whine that shook the hangar walls. One by one, the aircraft rolled onto the taxiway, then lined up on the runway. Kara's hands moved across the controls with practiced precision. 20 years of flying had made these movements automatic. But her heart hammered against her ribs like it was her first solo flight. Viper Squadron, this is your mission commander. In 60 seconds, we launch into the most contested airspace any of us have seen. The people at Delta Base are counting on us. The wounded soldiers need evacuation. The medical crews need protection. She paused, looking down the line of aircraft beside her. Remember your training. Trust your equipment. Watch out for each other. And bring everyone home. Viper 2, ready for takeoff. Viper 3 ready. Viper 4 ready. Viper 5 ready. Kara pushed the throttles forward. Her F-35 accelerated down the runway, the ground falling away as she climbed into the gray morning sky. Behind her, 4 more aircraft followed in tight formation. Below, the base grew smaller. Ahead, mountains rose like black teeth against the dawn. Somewhere beyond those peaks, Delta Base waited under siege, its defenders watching the sky for salvation. Kara banked toward the mountains, her squadron trailing like a spear point aimed at the heart of enemy territory. The radio crackled with final updates from command. Viper 1, latest intelligence shows increased SAM activity. They know you're coming. Copy that, Eagle Base. Switching to mission frequency. The radio went quiet except for the sound of engines and the whisper of wind over wings. Ahead, the valley opened like a throat waiting to swallow them. Kara's voice was calm when she spoke again. Viper Squadron, you know the stakes. Follow my lead, trust your training, and let's bring our people home. The valley opened before them like a gun barrel pointed at their hearts. Kara led Viper Squadron through the mountain pass at 300 feet, the rocky walls so close she could see individual boulders in the pre-dawn gloom. Her radar screen painted the enemy missile sites in red, a deadly constellation waiting to light up the sky. Viper Squadron, weapons hot. Maintain radio silence until we reach the base. Her voice was steady, but her knuckles were white on the stick. The first missile launch lit up her threat display like Christmas morning. SAM launch, bearing 270. All aircraft, evasive maneuvers now. 5 F-35s scattered like startled birds, each pilot trusting muscle memory and training. The surface-to-air missile streaked past Viper 3, close enough that Lieutenant Parker could see the exhaust flame through his canopy. Parker breathed over the radio. "Stay focused," Kara snapped. "Reform on me." 2 miles to first waypoint. They dove into a narrow canyon, following the twisting riverbed while radar-guided death searched for them overhead. Kara's aircraft shuddered as a near-miss explosion sent shrapnel rattling against her fuselage. The canyon walls fell away suddenly, revealing Delta Base spread below them like a burning island. Smoke rose from cratered buildings. Flashes of artillery lit the perimeter where soldiers held defensive positions behind sandbags and concrete barriers. Eagle Base, this is Viper 1. We have visual on Delta Base. Beginning attack run on SAM sites. Copy, Viper 1. Transport aircraft inbound in 5 minutes. Clear us a path. Kara rolled inverted and dove toward the first missile battery. Her targeting computer locked onto the radar truck, painting it with a green diamond. Viper 1, Fox 3. Her missile streaked downward, impacting the truck in a ball of orange flame. The explosion sent debris spinning through the air, but 2 more SAM sites immediately came online, their radars sweeping for targets. Viper 2, engaging Eastern Battery, Torres called out, his aircraft pulling into a steep climb to avoid ground fire. Negative, Viper 2. That's a trap. They're using that battery as bait to draw you into overlapping fields of fire. Torres pulled out of his attack run just as 2 missiles launched from hidden positions. Thanks for the save, Viper 1. Kara studied her tactical display, seeing the pattern the enemy had laid. Viper Squadron, they've got interlocking coverage. We need to hit them simultaneously from different vectors. On my mark, converging attack. The 5 F-35s spread out, approaching the remaining SAM sites from north, south, east, and west. Kara's plan required split-second timing and absolute trust. Mark. 5 missiles launched simultaneously. The enemy operators, overwhelmed by multiple threats, couldn't engage them all. For SAM sites disappeared in coordinated explosions, their radars going dark on Kara's display. Gap in the coverage, she announced. Transport aircraft, you have a window. Move now. 3 heavy transport helicopters appeared on the horizon, flying low and fast toward Delta Base. Behind them came 2 medical evacuation aircraft, their red crosses barely visible in the dim light. But the enemy wasn't finished. Hidden mobile launchers emerged from camouflage positions, their missiles already tracking the incoming transports. New contacts. Multiple SAM sites coming online. Transports are sitting ducks. Kara didn't hesitate. She dove her F-35 directly into the missile engagement envelope, placing herself between the SAMs and the evacuation aircraft. All Vipers, protect those transports. Whatever it takes. The sky erupted in trails of fire and smoke. Missiles crisscrossed the airspace like deadly fireworks. Viper 5 took a proximity hit that shredded his port wing, but Lieutenant Mason kept flying, his damaged aircraft trailing smoke. Viper 5, you're hit. RTB immediately. Negative, Viper 1. Those medics need cover. I can still fly. The transport helicopters reached Delta Base, touching down in the small landing zone as soldiers ran toward them carrying stretchers. Wounded men were loaded quickly, efficiently, while artillery shells exploded nearby. Kara's threat receiver screamed as another missile locked onto her aircraft. She pulled into a vertical climb, dispensing flares and chaff, the missile detonating harmlessly behind her. First transport lifting off, came the radio call. 15 critical patients aboard. A mobile SAM launcher emerged from behind a ridgeline, its missile already tracking the departing helicopter. Kara rolled hard left and fired her cannon, the 25mm round stitching across the launcher's position. The vehicle erupted in flames just as its missile went ballistic, spiraling harmlessly into the mountains. Second transport departing. 22 souls aboard. Third transport loading. Need 30 more seconds. 30 seconds felt like 30 minutes as Viper Squadron fought to keep the airspace clear. Lieutenant Parker's aircraft took cannon fire from a hidden anti-aircraft gun, punching holes in his fuselage, but missing critical systems. Last transport airborne. All personnel evacuated. Delta base is clear. Kara felt a weight lift from her chest. 230 soldiers were safe. The wounded would reach medical facilities in time. The mission was complete. Viper Squadron, form up for home. We're done here. The 5 F-35s climbed away from the valley, leaving burning enemy positions behind them. As they cleared the mountains, the sun broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Eagle Base, this is Viper 1. Mission accomplished. All personnel evacuated successfully. Viper Squadron returning to base. Outstanding work, Viper 1. You and your squadron have saved a lot of lives today. Lieutenant Mason's damaged aircraft struggled to keep up, but he stayed in formation, smoke still trailing from his wing. Thanks for letting me fly this mission, Major. It meant everything. You earned your place up here, Mason. All of you did. As they approached their home base, Kara could see ground crews already preparing for their arrival. Fire trucks stood ready for Mason's emergency landing. Medical personnel waited for any injured aircrew. But more importantly, she could see the transport helicopters already on the ground, their precious cargo being transferred to waiting ambulances. Red lights flashed as the wounded were rushed to the base hospital. The tower controller's voice was warm with relief. Viper Squadron, welcome home. Outstanding mission. You've got a clear approach, winds calm. One by one, the F-35s touched down, their mission complete. Kara taxied to her parking spot and shut down the engines. The sudden silence felt strange after hours of engine noise and combat. She climbed out of the cockpit and pulled off her helmet, her hair damp with sweat. General Hayes was waiting for her, along with Colonel Morrison and the rest of the command staff. Major Whitman, Hayes said, extending his hand. That was exceptional flying. You and your squadron have done something extraordinary today. Kara shook his hand, but her eyes were on the medical helicopters. How are the wounded, sir? All stable. The medics say you got them out just in time. Another few hours, and we would have lost several of them. She nodded, feeling the tension finally leaving her shoulders. Around her, the other pilots were being congratulated by ground crews and fellow officers. They had volunteered for an impossible mission and made it possible through skill, courage, and teamwork. Major, Colonel Morrison approached, his expression serious but respectful. I owe you an apology. Your actions during the rescue mission showed the same judgment you displayed today. I was wrong to question your commitment to the service. Thank you, sir. But I was just doing my job. No, Morrison said quietly. You were doing what was right. There's a difference. As the sun climbed higher, Kara walked toward the debriefing room. Behind her, her F-35 sat quietly on the tarmac, its mission-worn surface gleaming in the morning light. Tomorrow there would be other missions, other challenges. But today, everyone was coming home. That was enough. If you enjoyed this story of sacrifice and heroism, please hit that like button and subscribe for more untold military stories.